Gospel Tangents is supported by users like you. Please support us at gospeltangents.com or on Patreon. Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology, and first daily Mormon history podcast. I'm Rick Bennett. I'm excited to continue our conversation with Dr. Ryan Cragun. This time we're going to talk about the role of religion in politics. We'll also talk about the survey he did on women and priesthood in the LDS Church. Very interesting results, I'll have to say. And we'll also conclude talk with some more talk about his sample on why Utahns are not majority Mormon anymore. So you won't want to miss this conversation. Check it out. So, because, I know there's been a theory, and maybe it's gone out of style. I talked about this with Matt Bowman, that conservative fundamentalist religions that don't allow you to drink, don't allow you to dance, don't allow you to eat bacon, things like that.
High-cost religions, yeah.
They retain more members than the progressive. Do you agree with that or no?
Yes. So yeah, that is true, right? If you actually look at kind of retention rates, they do tend to do a little bit better. I don't want to crib too much for my forthcoming book. Y'all need to just buy that book. We address a lot of these things in there. But so there are some reasons why that might be the case, right? One, when you have really high costs, right, leaving is an even higher cost, right? When you're raised in a religion that controls everything from what you can say and think and wear and eat, right, leaving becomes a much bigger challenge. So it's hard to leave a religion that is like all encapsulating, a strict or high demand or high cost religion. That's what they're called. So it can be much harder to leave, right? So I absolutely get that, and I think there's some truth to that. But we often don't flip that around and ask what I think is the more interesting question, which is, why are people attracted to those conservative religions? What is it about the conservative religion that actually has appeal versus the more progressive religions, right? The progressive religions are dying. Steve Bruce, that sociologist I mentioned in the UK, he projected at the rate of decline in the UK, I think this is in his 2011 book, United Methodist or the Methodist Church would be gone by 2033.
Oh,
gone.
Wow.
Gone.
And they're having a big schism right now.
Yeah. I mean, they're struggling, right? So I think flipping that around, why are people attracted to these conservative religions? If you live in a modern, fairly progressive country like the United States, right, but you aren't fully comfortable with, say, transgender individuals, right? Or maybe you're like, I don't know if gays should be allowed to be, marry or something like that. Where are you going to find validation for those views? Or if you're like, you know what, like my wife wants to stay home and raise kids. Are you going to find validation for those views in Hollywood?
No.
No. Where are you going to find it? In the conservative churches, right? So there is still a niche market for these conservative religions. They attract people who hold very similar views, right? Because they hold those views, they can find affirmation and validation for their views in these conservative religions. There's appeal there, right? And I don't think that appeal is going to disappear anytime soon. I like to kind of joke or argue, it's a little tricky, right? That the LDS Church is always going to be like 40 to 50 years behind everybody else, right? And that's fully intentional, and I get it. I'm not going to say like, hey, no, you should just totally modernize, right? They have to remain fairly conservative, but still change, right? If you don't change, you're going to die. But if you change too fast, what's your appeal, right? What's the appeal of the LDS Church if it's like the same values that are espoused in Hollywood, right? There's no appeal there, because what affirmation or validation do I get for my beliefs? There's none.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I know specifically with the Community of Christ, the current pastor, she's former LDS, and it was following the 2015 policy where the LDS Church says we can't baptize children of gays, we're not going to ordain them, that sort of a thing. The Community of Christ in Salt Lake got rejuvenated and is a really pretty healthy congregation. Now, Brittany lives in Saratoga Springs. It takes her 45 minutes to drive up to Salt Lake to pastor the church. And I know there's a small one in Provo right now. But we are seeing these people that you talk about. I'm not comfortable with the LDS Church on gays, women in priesthood, things like that. And so they have migrated to Community of Christ. So there is that.
Right.
And we haven't really talked about politics. Has politics played in a role in disaffection?
Yes. We're straight up stealing everything from my new book. Right?
Which
is not the one that's coming out. No, it's fine. That's fine. So we talk about in there, like, why people are leaving, right? And we frame it as push factors and pull factors, which is the same thing that we argue with immigration, right? So sociologists or demographers who study immigration, we talk about, like, why are people pulled to a country and what is pushing them from a country? Well, you can think about religion and religious exiting or religious disaffiliation the same way. What are the factors that are pushing people out, and what are the factors that are pulling them out of religion? And certainly politics matters. I don't want to overstate politics, but like...
is it different in the U.S. compared to Europe or other places?
I think it's pretty similar. Right?
Oh, really?
So I think it's the same kind of general idea. So I think Pope Francis just came out and said that Catholic priests can bless same-sex unions, but they can't perform weddings, and they have to make it very clear that it's a blessing, and it can't be in the context of a wedding, and it can't use any of the same symbolism of a wedding, but they can bless same-sex marriages, right? So this is like a sop.
So kind of more progressive. Can't be in a Catholic church, I'll bet.
It's like, it's just really bizarre what they're saying, right? But at the same time, they know, like, they have to modernize too. Right? Can you imagine where the Catholic Church would be today if Vatican II hadn't happened and Mass was still in Latin, right? Like, they would be dead, right? Like, it just wouldn't happen, right? Some people love the mystique of Latin. Sure, that's great. But religions have to modernize, right? And so they will slowly modernize, right? I mean, imagine if the LDS Church today brought back the race exclusivity thing.
Ooh.
What would happen to the LDS Church, right? It is done, right? Yeah. All you would have left would be like 50 white supremacists sitting around with $150 billion, right? Like the church is over, right? You can't do that. So I've argued this in some of my papers. Like,
so is women in priesthood and LGBT coming? It's coming.
100% it's coming.
Oh.
Right? Again, they're 50 years behind the times, right? So they will eventually get there.
2070.
Somewhere around there, it'll happen. Right? Because they have to. They have to keep moving, right? Otherwise, I mean, we know they're losing.
They'll become the Puritans?
Well, yeah. They'll become the Amish or something like that, right? They'll just be so obscure that no one will belong to them. They're losing, the LDS Church is probably losing 60 to 70% of young people. And it's value misalignment, right? It's a push factor. A lot of young people are like, I watch TV, I watch movies. There are gay people around. I have gay friends. I have, all of these values that are just misaligned. Why are you going to stay part of an institution like that? And the weird part is the people who are leaving for those reasons, they see the LDS Church as immoral, right? And that's the part that I think gets left out of this conversation all the time. So members of the church are like, oh, you're leaving and you're going to like drink coffee and smoke or do whatever. That's so immoral. You're going to have premarital sex or you're going to cohabit. You're so immoral. And all the people who are leaving are like, actually, you're the immoral ones, right? You're the ones who are discriminating against lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender people. You're the ones who are discriminating against all of this, right? You want women to be kind of, lesser than men. And like, it's a morality argument at the end of the day, which is pretty fascinating, right? Yeah. That both sides are like, you're the immoral ones. No, you're the immoral ones, right? Okay.
Well, and to throw in the fundamentalists, because I hang out with a lot of polygamists, and they're like, oh, the church is in apostasy. We're doing the original 1877 endowment and long sleeve garments.
Yeah. And how big is their niche appeal, right? Their niche appeal is itty bitty tiny. Right. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like, I don't judge. I'm value free. I'm a sociologist, right? Like, whatever. You do you. I don't care. As long as everybody's consenting adult, like, have a good time. I don't care. But their niche appeal is never going to be big, right? Polygamist, fundamentalist Mormons are never going to attract more than a very, very tiny subset of the population. Now, yeah, they might grow because they have so many kids, right? But how many people are really being attracted to these organizations, right? It may seem like a lot because it's Utah and some, and it seems, maybe they're growing a little bit or whatever. It's these are insignificant numbers.
Well, the FLDS has dropped by 80 to 90%.
Once
It's
Warren
ridiculous.
Justice, once he was arrested and like all of this stuff collapsed.
Well, and he's just running it into the ground.
I know. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what...
So that's an example of the Puritans, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you drive it that direction. Yeah.
So, well, this is interesting because the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about was a paper you published earlier this year about whether women would get the priesthood in the LDS Church. And also you compared that with ideas about returning to Jackson County, Missouri.
Yes.
So introduce us to that paper,
Sure.
and we'll talk about this secularization of the LDS Church in 50 years.
In 50 years, which is, maybe. So all of that stems from the Mormon Gender something project. So I was part of this big group. There were like 20, 30 of us who had this idea back in 2013, 2014, somewhere around there, that, so even further back, for years we've actually known that men in the LDS Church are more in favor of women getting ordained than women are.
I've noticed that.
It's just super weird, right? Like it always is like, what is going on here? And now the numbers aren't huge, right? It's like 10% of women are in favor and like 16% of men are, right? But there's a gap.
Is it that low?
It's not a huge difference, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's pretty small. So the numbers are relatively small, but there were some researchers out there who said, we think what's going on here is actually a little bit weird. Because the LDS Church is a top-down hierarchical institution, right? If the leadership came out tomorrow and said, you know what? Women are going to get ordained. What percentage of members would fall in line, right? The problem with how we've been asking the questions is that we think about it as a bottom-up institution. So we've been asking questions like, do you think women should be allowed to be ordained, right? Well, that infers that implies that the local members can actually make that decision and it'll work its way up, right? That's not how the LDS Church works, right? All of the decisions come from the top down. So we had the idea, what if we fielded a survey where we asked if the leadership, if the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 Apostles decided that women were going to be ordained, how likely would you be to support this, right? And it turns out when you ask the question that way, support for ordaining women goes up to like 80%, right? So there's still a subset that are like, I don't think women should be allowed to be ordained.
They're going to go join the FLDS Church
they're
and
out,
stuff.
right? So then that's it. But it very quickly illustrates, right? Like the way you ask the question dramatically changes the outcome of some of these surveys. So that was the bigger project. But while we were doing that, we're like, okay, we've got some money. We're going to fill this smaller sample of like 500 Mormons nationally or whatever. But then we opened it up, and because we had a big group and they did some really good marketing on social media, when we launched the survey as a non-random sample, right? We ended up getting close to 60,000 respondents in about
crazy.
2 weeks. It blew up. It went crazy, right? We ended up closing the survey early. And when you get that many people, that was the only time in my 20 plus years of doing research where somebody actually contacted my institutional review board, my IRB at my university, and said I was doing unethical research and that I needed to end the research. And what my unethical research was, is I was asking whether people thought women should be ordained. That was the extent of what I was doing that was unethical, right? So my IRB chair came to me and he's like, dude, what's going on? Like, I'm getting all these emails from people in Idaho and like just random places around the country saying they need to pull my IRB. I did something unethical. And I was like, here's the survey. You approved it. And I was like, so what's wrong? Like, what's the problem? I said, they just don't want me to ask the question. Like, I don't understand. Like, they literally couldn't understand what was going on. I had to talk to my PR department about that. They had people contacting the president of my university saying, you've got to end this survey. This is unethical. So they went through like PR. I had to get called into all these things. And I was like, look, we actually got IRB approval at my institution, and Mike Nilsson is at Georgia Southern. Both of us got IRB approval. We're doing everything perfectly above board. They just don't want us to ask the question, right? So it's kind of crazy. Anyway, all of that comes back to this. It was crazy. We included in the survey the non-random one, right? So the random one that was, smaller subset, we didn't have space to do it because it cost money. But in the random one, the non-random one, it was just kind of, a snowball sample. We had so many respondents. We threw in these like experiments where basically we said, okay, what do you think the odds are effectively of women getting the priesthood. And then we gave people timelines. So we said, do you think at any point in the future they would get the priesthood? So at any point in the future. And then we gave them different timelines. So it was like, what about in 20 years, 40 years, 60 years, 80 years, 100 years, something like that. And how we did that is different people saw different numbers. And because we had so many, we have like 2,000 in each of those categories,
Wow.
right? So they were able to allot it that way. And then we had two others. I'm going to skip one because we didn't put it in the paper. But the other one was, what do you think the odds are that members of the church are going to be called to move back to Jackson County, Missouri, in preparation for the second coming of Jesus Christ? Okay. So we had both of those. And again, same timeline. At some point in the future, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, something like that. And the reason we put the Jackson County one in there is we wanted to see which was more likely, right? For members of the church, are they more likely to think that the second coming is going to happen before women are going to get the priesthood? And it turns out they are, which is mind-blowing, right? For kind of those of us who are doing this research, we're like, really? You
Jesus
really
is going to institute.
Yes, right. You really think that Jesus is more likely to return than women are going to get the priesthood. And that's actually what we showed in the paper, which is kind of shocking, right?
Yeah.
But again, it kind of reflects the way this works, which is the bigger, earlier paper, right? So we did publish a paper on this showing if you flip the question around and say, if the first presidency in the Quorum of the 12 said we're going to ordain women, would you support it? It's like 80% of Mormons say yeah. So anyway, it's a fun little survey, right? Fun little experiment that we did. And yeah, legitimately, they think it's more likely Jesus is going to return than women get the priesthood.
So Jesus is going to return in 2070?
It's more likely for them, according to them, than women getting the priesthood. Sorry, I just kind of do fun things, right? I mean, I think they're fun. It's entertaining to do this stuff.
They
I have
are
a great
fun.
time. Yeah. Research should be fun, right? Ask fun questions.
So how do you come up with these ideas? I mean, I guess you grew up here in Utah.
I did.
You're in Florida now. Are these other researchers, do they have LDS backgrounds?
Yeah. So on this paper that just came out, Rick Phillips, it's weird. So I grew up in Morgan. Rick Phillips is from Ogden. He's about 10 years older than I am, so we didn't know each other. He's now at University of North Florida. I met him through the Mormon Social Science Association. Right?
Oh, okay.
So when I first started going they meet at the same time as SSR. When I first
Are you guys meeting in St. George in April?
are. So
I forgot to mention that.
Yeah,
That's the day before, right?
It is.
So
Before
come to
the
Juanita Brooks. Come to this too.
Yep. So we'll do a one-day mini conference. And we haven't been doing that for very long. We used to actually meet with UVU when they were doing like the Mormon Studies Conference. We would do the day before that and have an MSSA.
How did I not know about that? I work at UVU.
We don't do a great job marketing. That's probably on me, but yeah. So I met Rick, 20 years ago now, something like that. And we just have so many things in common, right? He grew up in Ogden. I grew up in Morgan. We both have Mormon backgrounds. He served a mission, I think, in Louisiana, like southern states. He's basiced out as well.
I wonder if I met him.
You probably met him at the conference.
Because we went to dinner after. Did he grow up in South Ogden?
Ogden. He was, I'm trying to think, right by Ogden
I think he
High.
grew up in my neighborhood, but he's older than me.
He knows you.
He's older than me, and I think we talked to him. I talked to him. Yeah.
Because I actually, after the conference, we went to his brother's house. We had red-eye flights that night, and they both knew who you were.
Oh, really?
Yes. Because you grew up there, right?
Yeah. I met somebody who grew up in my neighborhood that I never knew because he was older than me.
Yeah.
And it might have been him.
I think it's Rick Phillips. Yes. So I think they both were like, oh yeah, we know that guy. Right. And I was like, okay, cool. So yeah, Rick, he's basically out today. Right. I'll let him self-identify how he wants to self-identify, but I don't think he's formally resigned. Bethany, who's another co-author on this piece, she's at Utah Tech. She also grew up in the LDS Church. Again, I don't know if she's formally resigned, but she's kind of out as well. I did formally resign, but that was like 2002.
Oh, it's been a while.
Yeah, so I formally resigned like over 20 years ago. That was in grad school, so I left. But not everybody has. So Mike Nilsson is a good collaborator. He's still a member of the church. The Shepherd twins, I don't think they would identify as LDS at all.
Well, Jana Reese is in there.
Yeah, Jana Reese is there. She hangs out with us, right? So we, all the conferences we hang out. So it's mixed, right? We've had when I first started attending the MSSA meetings, there were like 5 or 6 BYU professors who would attend all the time. BYU doesn't really hire professors to study religion anymore, which is kind of interesting, right? But at the time, Tim Heaton, who's kind of a big name, is a big demographer. He was down there.
Was he at San Diego? Or South Dakota?
He's still there. He was. He has moved a couple of times, done like sabbatical like appointments, but he's still at BYU.
He's a listener.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, I like John. Shout out to John Hoffman. He's a good guy. He's a really good guy. But they had like 5 or 6, and they've all slowly kind of retired except John. John, as far as I know, is the only one who still does religion in the sociology department. There are some people in other departments who do some stuff on religion, but in sociology, it's kind of died down quite a bit. So yeah, we're a very diverse group. We're cool. We hang out.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dr. Ryan Cragun. In our final conversation, we're going to talk about why industrialized countries lose their interest in religion, but it's only going to be available to newsletter subscribers. So subscribe to our free newsletter at gospeltangents.com/newsletter, and I'll send you a secret link to the final part of our conversation.
But when I told him that, I said, look, you might be able to slow things down a little bit, but based on the current trends and everything we understand about how, people work, you're not going to reverse this. Secularization is happening, right?
So pour your resources in Africa?
They're not going to... The 30% of people in the U.S. who now no longer identify as having a religious affiliation, that's actually a misrepresentative number, I think, at some level. So It's roughly 30% say they have no religious affiliation, but we leave out what I think is actually the most important part of that. Only 20% of people in the U.S. regularly attend religious services.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you to continue to enjoy Gospel Tangents. Consider becoming a Patreon or go to gospeltangents.com/shop, and you can get a cool tie, a hat, or even a nice mug. You can also get a sweatshirt. So check it out at gospeltangents.com/shop.